We finally have something to talk about that's not hypothetical this week.
I mean, who doesn't love a good hypothetical when it comes to the offseason? It's fun talking about Grant Hill on the championship squad or Killian Hayes doing something. I don't know. Whatever the hypothetical is, it's fun to talk about on the podcast, and we will not give them up. But we do got some good stuff that actually has to do with the now and possibly even the later, but the Rico Hines runs. Great footage. I hope everybody got a chance to watch it. 43 minutes of Pistons content you didn't know you needed in your life today.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Like, so I thought that they were just there for the one-time thing. Apparently, they're there like for a full week, and we only saw like one day of that. So there's like a week of footage we haven't even seen yet.
They were playing pretty well. I was surprised by them only going to 7. I didn't feel like that was enough. But when you have so many teams and so many players there, and I think it's like 3 courts going simultaneously, which is pretty cool. But I wanted more because 7 just feels too short. But I do like how they end the games. Like you could be winning 7-4, but you got to make a free throw to actually officially end the game, which I thought was pretty cool. But what were your impressions from the Rico Hines runs?
I thought that the Clippers team was probably the most seasoned team out there. They had the most vets. Seemed like every time I watched, they were just kicking somebody's ass. But, I mean, that's what happens when you have Norm Powell and Robert Covington out there. And Bones Highland definitely wanted to smoke with Cade Cunningham.
Oh, yeah. I could not tell who it was. For some reason, I thought it was like Emmanuel Quickly until I saw the Clippers stuff. But I was like, man, whoever that guy is, he is really getting after Cade. Then Cade showed out in that game, getting the last shot, I believe, to actually win it. But it was pretty cool. But what I am impressed, though, with how many players that I've already said that. But what were you impressed specifically about the Pistons?
So I did take some notes. So I wanted to start with the SAR first, and then we can kind of just work down my list.
Okay.
Dude, his defense. It's like a real, like, it's not just a summer league thing, which some people are like, dude, it's summer league. He's playing against G League players, right?
Yeah.
And he was going up against like veteran NBA players and giving them fits. Like there was a play where he deflected the ball and he went, coast to coast and just had an easy basket. Like, to me, I think his defense really stood out in these runs.
That was one of the notes I took too, was his defense. Like, I think it'd be so easy to use your hands and like check people that way when you're playing in an open run. But hands didn't get in the way. He was able to recover real quickly, fight around screens because they actually were, throwing some screens out there. He got a nice block and he was quickly able to get out in transition. But what I really liked about his game, and I'm just going to switch it to the offensive side, he didn't really force anything offensively, but he made an impact with his defense and being able to push it in transition. Like I think he's a day one starter, and like it is just Rico Hines footage, but he looked like a day one starter. That defense looks real special next to Cade and Jaden Ivey.
I mean, he hit an open 3 too, I believe, to end the game. So I mean, like, it's so funny. Before we went live, I got a notification from Pistons Reddit that they're doing like a docu-series with Overtime Elite. I think airing September 6th on Amazon Prime, and Asar is going to be in it. So I'm really excited to watch that. But like, just like his two-way possibility for me has me excited, because like that's like the type of forward that we need on this team if we're going to be a playoff team down the road.
Oh, one more thing about his defense, though, because I mean, you really surprised me with the documentary talk. But I mean, is it Pistons Reddit that is doing a documentary with Overtime Elite, or is it Overtime Elite doing it with the Pistons?
I think one of the producers just sent it in Pistons Reddit, because I got like a notification.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
From Reddit, and I was like, oh, Amazon Prime's doing a documentary with Overtime Elite. And there was like a little, I'll send you the trailer later, but there's like a little trailer talking about Asara, and like, if he's going to be a great player, he's going to have to, shoot better at the next level. But like, it got me hyped. Just, I was like, dude, like, I need a documentary series in the summer, because there's like another month without basketball and I'm starving over here.
I will say, I wish the Detroit Pistons, well, I know we're going off topic here for a second, but their Pistons TV on YouTube, I wish they do more under the hood videos. Those are actually really cool. I was checking out some of their content, and it's pretty sweet how they put that all together. I just wish they did more of it. But one more thing about Asara's defense, not falling for pump fakes, not looking like a rookie.
No.
That I think it was around like the 20-minute, 25-minute mark. I think they were playing, I want to say against the New York Knicks squad. That's what it looked like. Maybe it wasn't, maybe it was the Clippers, but one of their point guards, he like threw three pump fakes up and he did not bite at all. And I think he actually got a block on that play for when he passed it. The guy passed it off and got the ball back. Great recovery, but not falling for pump fakes.
Yeah, this he just looked like a really complete player out there in Rico Hines, and I'm happy for him. I think him getting that kind of I don't want to say I think it's a good experience. Because I know some people will just say, dude, it's open runs. It's not like real basketball. These are competitive runs. I think it's good for him having a strong summer league and then working against, veteran teams like the 76ers. I think the Lakers were in there and the Clippers. So those are all great teams. They all made the playoffs last year. So, and he was up for the challenge. His defense to me, I thought was a real big positive, but I did want to transition to Jaden Ivey
Okay, go ahead.
because I thought his 3-point shot was falling. And it kind of looked like, the end of last year where he was shooting 35% from three. Like the 3-point shot looks great.
I had a couple notes on Jaden Ivey. I did briefly write down that his jump shot looked good. It looked like he was finding better spots along the perimeter, like realizing like, these are my spots and he was getting to them. That was really nice. I felt like he forced things a little bit. Like that's still a part of his game. Like those are the habits he needs to break. But one thing I wanted to talk about, I've talked about it on this podcast. Now that Cade Cunningham's back and he's not going to really have to play the point guard and have too much responsibility on that side, you're going to see a different energy defensively. And I felt like we were seeing that in some of the Rico Hines footage. There wasn't a ton of clips, but he was aggressive, trying to gamble to make steals. And I think that's something he'll do more of this year and be more comfortable knowing Jalen Duren is protecting the rim back there. But I like that from Jaden Ivey, that aggressiveness defensively.
Yeah, I think it was one of the first games that they played, and Jaden Ivey wasn't giving up any kind of position defensively. Like he was trying to fight through screens. He was moving his feet, and like you said, he's not going to have that offensive responsibility where I have to be the guy. I have to be that number one option. And I think you saw that in the Rico Hines runs because Cade Cunningham had the ball in his hands 90% of the time in these runs, and Jaden just kind of played off Cade, and we were kind of wondering last week, like, hey, can Jaden take that? Like, say, okay, I'm going to be the second option. I don't have to beat the first option. I'll just pass it to Cade, and I think he can fit into that secondary role where he doesn't have the ball in his hands, and he can just kind of play off Cade or Duren.
Speaking of the way those two played together, real quick, another note that I had when Jaden Ivey was bringing the ball up as the point guard, I like that Cade was looking for his spots off the ball, getting into the post, using his size. Like, I thought that would have to be a big step for them this coming season, primarily on Cade. Like, how is he going to play off the ball? Because I feel like that's the next step in his evolution as a player to become more complete. You can't always just be a ball dominant guard. You have to find other ways to score and get open looks. And I thought he did a little bit of that. And I think that's going to be something we see more of heading into the regular season, and that was pretty cool to see from Cade.
Yeah, I was just really impressed with him knocking down his 3-pointers and his defense. The next note I had was Cade Cunningham and his jump shot.
Yep.
The release looks quicker and it looks really consistent. I mean, he was taking some deep mid-range jump shots, and every time he shot it, I thought it was going in, and like his form just looks automatic.
Yeah, his form looked great off the dribble. He was able to create space while dribbling. That was really cool. He had a nice fadeaway, and I think it was one of the earlier games where it was a little turnaround, kicked his leg out. That was a nice shot. He had a 3 too as well. That looked real clean. Like he just feels more confident and looks stronger from like the legs up, getting his jump shot off. And it looked real smooth. There was no hesitation, wasn't favoring a leg, wasn't doing anything like that. Just a real clean looking jumper from Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, he had a dunk too, which I was like, okay, I see you. I mean, like
Didn't he catch an
We
oop?
don't really talk about like Cade Cunningham like athletically of like, oh, this guy's gonna like get a poster, but like he does have bunnies if he wants to get up there. But I was really impressed with just, his form looks a lot quicker. Seems like he's not really favoring anything, getting to his spots at will. I know the first game his handle was kind of loose, but as he warmed up, he wasn't really turning the ball over as much.
Yeah. Did you make a note of their chemistry, him and Duren's chemistry?
Yeah, it's one of my last notes.
Okay,
But we can get that now, and then we can talk about Isaiah Stewart after.
go ahead.
Um,
What did
I
you
think
have?
the Caden Duran chemistry is going to be a problem. I really do. Those two together, there were so many lobs. There was just they were constantly looking for each other. The way Duran screened for Cade, the way they just dominated defensively and offensively. I told you last week, I think they could possibly have a similar season to what Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond had when they were a top 5 pick and roll offense in the league under Stan Van Gundy. I think Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren can have a similar effect under Monty Williams.
Dude, I don't know if it looked like it to you, but it looked like they had been playing together for years. They like Cade, the way he was dropping the ball off to him, right in a position for Duren to grab it, strong hands and going straight up, wasn't behind him, wasn't ahead of him. It was right where it needed to be. That chemistry is on point. I think those two together and running that pick and roll is going to be a huge part of the offense. And Duren's going to get so many easy buckets just by moving. Like he was getting them with the pick and roll, he was getting them in transition just by running a straight line to the basket. He's probably going to get like 8 points a game just by running the floor in. It was incredible. One thing I would have liked to see from him, because I know he hit an outside shot in the footage that they showed. I would have liked to see him just kind of, I mean, I get why it's so important for him and Cade to be working on that partnership and that pick and roll game, but it would have been nice to see him take a few more jumpers because I feel like that is going to be another step in his evolution as an offensive player. But him to hit that mid range, be more of a pick and pop big man, that'd be pretty nice. But his defense looked good too. His footwork and the way he was able to keep up with guys, you see a real future where if they were just going to switch everything, that he's not going to get lost on that side of the ball just because his athletic ability allows him to recover really quickly, but his feet, like just being able to stay in front of guys that are much smaller than him, that was pretty impressive too.
He looked like the strongest guy on the court.
Yeah, that's for
like
sure.
Some of the dunks he was pulling off around the rim, like those were not easy dunks. Like his body was contorted and he was sideways. Like if you go back and watch some of the dunks that he was doing, I'm like, that's not an easy dunk. Like, mind you, he's still, I believe he's still 19. He may be 20. I don't know his birthday off the top of my head, but like just some of the dunks and the way he was finishing around the rim was really encouraging for me. And he is a top 10 center, by the way, Bleacher Report.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that though later. We need to bring that up. But what notes did you have about Isaiah Stewart?
So Isaiah Stewart, I love the effort. I love the hustle. But his jump shot looked a lot quicker. Like the release.
Yes.
Like I went back and watched an old game because I still paid for Bally and I didn't even know I paid for it. So I'm gonna go watch an old game of Isaiah Stewart. And his release from the outside, I'm not saying it's slow by any means, but in this Rico Hines footage, like seems like his release got a lot quicker, and that's probably something he's been working on a lot this summer. And to me, that's really encouraging. And he was knocking down some pretty deep 3-pointers in those runs.
The thing I most noted about his shot was there was no hesitation. It was up and out of his hands real quickly. It's not, he didn't hesitate. He didn't think for a second, should I take this shot or whatever? He just let it go and it looked a lot smoother. That was my biggest takeaway from him. Because that hustle and the effort's going to be there every game. That motor's always going to be running. So I'm not worried about that. I was just seeing his shot in Rico Hines. If he was the starter going forward and they wanted to start Bojan at the 3 for some reason instead of Asar, I'd be okay with it just because that's how good the shot looked. Like I have so much faith in him taking the next step this year, I believe his 4th year coming in. So yeah, I was impressed with the shot, man. I really was. There's not much more to say about it. It looked good. It looked smooth and there was no hesitation.
I know before we do move on to the next topic, were you kind of disappointed that they start the video off and you see Killian Hayes, James Wiseman, Marcus Sasser, Isaiah Livers, and you don't see any of them. You see them on the other side of the court, but you don't see them playing at all.
I was a little disappointed because I did want to see some Killian Hayes footage. Like, I mean, he was standing with his hands in his pocket. So the moment he does that, you know he's not playing with the five. So there's no way they're going to put him out there with Cade and Jaden Ivey and all those guys. But that's kind of a joke. But yeah, I was a little disappointed I didn't get to see any of those guys. Hopefully there is some footage. I was really, honestly, mostly disappointed not being able to see Marcus Sasser. Like, that's who I really wanted to see at the Rico Hines. But hey, it is what it is. Maybe they have another 3 courts down the hallway or something for the non-starters. But I got really excited seeing the 5 play together because that just feels like it's going to be a big time lineup for us this year going forward in the regular season. I feel like those 5 we saw at Rico Hines, we're going to see them a lot together on the floor during the regular season. So I get it, but I mean, I was a little disappointed seeing all those guys at the beginning, but seeing no footage or no highlights come from it.
It felt like the biggest tease to me. I was like, oh, I want to say Monte Morris, running the second unit or, getting some minutes with Cade and Ivy, but we didn't get to see any of that.
I would have liked to see Killian Hayes play with Cade and Jaden Ivey because I would have liked to see if he could operate actually like off the ball and everything with those guys and just make a name for himself defensively. But we didn't get it.
I'm hoping they release the second footage because I could see them playing. Like I saw Isaiah Livers hit a couple threes while Cade and Ivey were playing. I was like, man, you got to show me some footage of those guys. I want to see what they were doing.
So who are you most impressed with during this footage?
Personally, I was most impressed with Duren.
Okay.
I just it's funny. We didn't talk about like Cade saying this is Butch League. Because there was like a play of like I don't even know what happened. Like I think Duren went to go like dunk something and like they tapped it out so it wouldn't go into the basket. But to get back to your question, I think Duren for me was the most impressive because from USA to now there was a massive improvement, and I thought he was a beast at Team USA Select. I see even more improvement now with the way he's setting picks and the way he's finishing around the rim, and had a couple of block shots on the Clippers and the Lakers. So I was really impressed with him.
I was most impressed with Cade Cunningham, just coming back from the injury, but the shot I was impressed with, but just really how he used his size when he didn't have the ball in his hands. Because it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Jason Kidd and Gary Payton, and I'll even throw in Mark Jackson, when they would back down guys and then run the offense from the post at that point guard position. You can see some sets of Cade Cunningham being able to do that with everybody else working around the perimeter. It was pretty cool to see that from Cade. So I was most impressed with just how he used his size and how he moved without the ball, even though it was like only a few clips that we saw. That's what I was most impressed with. Because I really think that's the next step for him as a basketball player, being able to play off the ball and get his shot off. And he was able to do it. It was impressive, man. I think he's going to have a huge year, and it's all just from this Rico Hines footage, man.
I think playing in Team USA, like, I know I had mentioned it, like him and Duren are just going to come out and they're going to be a step ahead of everyone on the team. Because not only did they get to play against top talent like Anthony Edwards and company, but they also got to see like how they move. Maybe they have a go-to post move or a go-to jump shot. Like, I think being a part of that select team is a big benefit, and you definitely saw it in the runs because like the chemistry that they built so quickly is scary because they barely got to play last year. Like if they got to play last year and Team USA and the Rico Hines, like I would probably say they'd be an 8 seed, but this the chemistry, man. It's so encouraging. Like that 1-5 pick and roll is going to be lethal this year.
It's going to be, it feels like it's going to be unfair for a few teams. Like Duren, I feel like is going to eat, and he's going to look great just by the way Cade puts him in position to get easy buckets. And I think it's going to affect James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley when they're on the floor as well. So big year, I think, is coming from the big men for the Detroit Pistons. But let's talk about some news real quick.
Okay.
So Monty Williams, I did not understand this though. Was he going to be the head coach for Team USA Select, or is he just going to be on like an assistant coach?
I can pull up the Athletic article real quick if you give me a second. So I said I was looking for topics for us to talk about, and this just so happened to. I was reading, like I read a lot of athletic articles, and I was like, oh, Monty Williams' name, right? And apparently they didn't want. I can't remember the Magic's head coach name right away, but I know he was the head coach for Team USA Select. So here's just a quote from the Athletic article. It says the staff Kerr originally chose is not the one heading into Milan for the World Cup. Spoelstra coached the U.S. Select team, the younger NBA players who practiced against the national team in training camp in 2021, and was promoted. Few took the slot of the college coaches previous held by Jay Wright. The final slot was given to Monty Williams, now with the Detroit Pistons, but Williams had to step aside for personal conflict this summer, which left the opening for Tyronn Lue, who already agreed to coach the select team.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it doesn't give a ton of information on Monty Williams. Like you had just mentioned, he pulled himself out because of personal reasons. But I honestly don't blame him. You know, you just get fired from the Phoenix Suns job after taking them to the NBA Finals just a couple seasons ago. And now you're starting with the Detroit Pistons. You have some other stuff going on. You got to get the roster in check. You're dealing with a young team. There's a lot going on for him. And so I don't blame him. But do you think if the Pistons had a rough start to start the season, some Pistons fans would point to this and say, like if he had taken the job, I mean, like, hey, it was irresponsible of him. It's a young team, you know, a new roster. He needed to be acclimated. I could see Pistons fans blaming Monty Williams if the Pistons go on and have a rough start if he had taken the job as the coach. Talking hypotheticals again, but that was
like I'll get to your question, but I think the main reason why he didn't take the job is because of his wife, obviously. And I don't know if it's well documented or not. You know, his wife does have cancer, and I think that's why he did not take the job, which, you know, you got to put your family first. And I think that's why he turned it down, and he has every right to. I mean, you got to take care of your family. But to your question, if you know he just started off bad, I don't really think the Pistons fans would be calling for his head. Like, he shouldn't have done that. Like, that's a great opportunity to coach some up and coming players and some veteran players, and, you know, represent your country. I don't really think Pistons fans are that bitter, or they're gonna go be keyboard warriors and say, "Can't believe we gave this guy all this money." No, like I think they're happy just. You know, you get a fresh start with a new coach with a lot of experience. You know, he's done it before. He's gone through, you know, rebuilds with more leans and Phoenix. And I think Pistons fans are hopeful that he can do it again with Detroit. And I think he can. But it's nice to know that Cade Cunningham and Monty Williams were at the top of Team USA's board to represent the U.S. That makes me feel good as a Piston fan.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you got one of the best up-and-coming players in Cade Cunningham. You still got a great coach in Monty that is well-respected. And everybody in the league felt like he was good enough to coach Team USA, the select team. And, I mean, it's unfortunate that he turned it down. But, again, he has his reasons. I think it's cool, though. I'm with you. It gets me excited about it. But, you know, not too much to talk about with it.
Yeah, like I said, it's August 27th as a recording topic. Like, yeah. You guys know, there's no basketball right now. Like, the most basketball I've seen is I saw a picture of Richard Hamilton and Rasheed Wallace just chilling. You know, like it's such a dead period right now because it's August. Like, we'll try to power through the next month with these podcasts. Try to be creative for you guys.
Do you think Monty would, like, after he gets situated in Detroit, maybe a season or two under his belt, do you see him taking a place on Team USA's bench as a coach?
You know, maybe when, you know, the family situation's a little bit more settled down, you know, they got a house, you know, things are more stable. I mean, he had to uproot his family from Phoenix to, you know, Michigan, which I know some people point at the contract like, dude, that's easy. It's never easy, you know, moving from state to state. Doesn't matter, you know, if you're making millions or you're like a middle class family. It's hard on you, like mentally and physically.
For sure. Let's talk a little bit about the schedule, just because we kind of rushed through it last week. So let's talk about all 82 games in great detail.
The preseason schedule came out for you guys that are wondering.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so weird. I'm on like the Detroit Pistons. I Googled their schedule and it doesn't talk about the first two preseason games. So the first one is October 8th versus the Phoenix Suns. That's at 3 p.m. at LCA. So it's a home game. And then October 12th versus Oklahoma City Thunder at 7 at Bell Center. I believe both of these games against Oklahoma City are in Canada, right?
One is in Canada. The Bell Center, if you guys are a hockey fan, that's where the Montreal Canadiens play. So they'll be playing in a hockey arena.
And then October 18th against Oklahoma City, they're at the Bach Center. I think I'm saying that right. And then October 19th, it's versus Dallas at AT American Airlines Center.
So we have 3 road games. I found it funny, and someone else in the comments did when I made a graphic, like, wow, we got a back-to-back in preseason.
Yeah, that's weird. I was just looking
like we play OKC, and then we play Dallas back-to-back nights. But I kind of find it funny that the Phoenix game, we play Phoenix twice really early in the schedule. Once in the preseason, and then once again in the regular season fairly early. I think like within the first like 6 games we play Phoenix. So that's something that, because we usually don't play Phoenix that much.
Yeah, it's the 7th game of the season.
Yeah, like we play Western Conference teams, but like, you know, we usually don't play Phoenix in the preseason. Usually it's like the Cavs or the Bulls or, you know, somewhere close. Even though the game is at home, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wish it wasn't Phoenix for the first preseason game. I wish they would have saved it for the regular season, the first time Monty faces his old team. I don't get the preseason thing. I mean, I don't know. I wish they would have gone with like maybe the Orlando Magic or like the Indiana Pacers or something like that. Not Phoenix though. Like I'm not disappointed. It doesn't like hurt me in any way, but it's just kind of weird that Monty's first game as a Detroit Pistons head coach is against his former team, but it's a meaningless game. It's a preseason game. We're not going to see, you know, the big names throughout the entire game like we would in a regular season. And I would have liked that more. I mean, we do get into game 7, but it would have been either make it game 1 or not the preseason. I just don't like that.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of random, you know, because a lot of people are like, man, the Lions are playing that day. Like, I wish the game was over like around 4 or 5 because it starts at 3. Because a lot of people, what'll happen is if the Lions play at 1 and the Pistons play like at 6 or 5, or you know, they'll just come over from Ford Field to LCA, just do a full day of it.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about that. Yeah, 3 p.m. game on a Sunday, that kind of sucks. You know, I mean, I'll watch that over the Lions, but you know, I wish I could watch both. You know, I mean, I guess I could put up a computer next to my TV and just stream them that way. That'd be pretty cool. Are you interested in any of these games? Like, are there any matchups in the preseason? I know we can talk about it in the regular season, but I'm hoping, I guess what I'm saying from preseason, I hope we see a healthy amount of like Marcus Sasser playing, because I don't think we're going to see him a ton at the beginning of the regular season. But is there any player you're looking forward to seeing in preseason that we probably won't see during the regular season?
I was more interested in Chet Holmgren and Jalen Durham playing against each other because I think they will run into each other. Because I think OKC, they'll play their starters, but probably for like, you know, 10, maybe 15 minutes at the most. I want to kind of see a rematch of Jalen Durham versus Chet Holmgren, because I mean, you guys could look up the footage in college. Jalen Durham used to bully him around like crazy.
That's going to be a fun matchup, but we get that in game 4 though. Man, playing the Thunder 3 times in the first, I don't know, what is it, 6 games, somewhere around there. But yeah, that's crazy. That's nuts, man. First 7 games, I should say. Yeah, it's a matchup, but let's talk about the regular season. So, like we talked about last week, game 1 is against the Miami Heat, the championship runner-up. Then we got the Charlotte Hornets. Those 2 games are both on the road. And then we have a home game against the Chicago Bulls. But is there any matchup at the beginning, like in those first 3 games, you're interested in watching?
Probably Charlotte a little bit.
Okay.
I want to see LaMelo versus Cade.
That's me too.
And then, you know, you got people like me. PJ Washington just got extended.
I saw that.
For a fairly cheap deal compared to Isaiah Stewart. So you got Pistons fans saying, like, why couldn't we give Isaiah Stewart $48 million? But You know how Pistons fans are. They see contracts and they think we overpay.
Yeah, we do that. Yeah, LaMelo, that's the big one for me. I mean, I kind of want to see the Alex Caruso matchup with Cade Cunningham, just because Alex Caruso is a crazy good defender. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then I'm interested in Zach LaVine and Asar, because I feel like that's a matchup we're going to see against the Chicago Bulls. And then in the Heat, I mean, Bam Adebayo and Durant, that could be pretty fun, I think. And who knows if they'll have Dame Lillard on their team yet, but I'm definitely going to be looking for that Bam Adebayo and Jalen Duren matchup. And then, I don't know, Tyler Hero too. Maybe he gets locked up by Asar. He's going to have some fun matchups early on. I feel like Asar is going to get these matchups defensively that we're going to see him go against head-to-head against Tyler Hero, probably even Terry Rozier, even though he's a smaller guard. But, I mean, he's a Pistons killer. And then against the Bulls, Zach LaVine, that's going to be a fun matchup.
I mean, Tyler Hero might be in Portland, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
I mean, Damian, like, wouldn't that just be like the Pistons' luck? Like, they trade for Damian Lillard, and we got to go up against Jimmy Butler and Dame and Bam opening night for the Heat. Like,
Yeah.
dude, that talk about like a middle finger to the Pistons from the NBA. Oh yeah, Dame's going to Miami. Good luck.
They accelerate the trade.
They don't make the trade before like the night of.
Yeah. What about the next three games? So we have the Thunder, then we have the Trailblazers. So speaking of Dame, and we also have the Pelicans for the next three games. We won't go through all 82, but we're going to go through a handful of these. So for the Thunder, I wrote this down. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's going to be a regular season matchup. I know we're going to see it in the preseason, but regular season is going to be a lot of fun. Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams. I'm really just interested in Jalen Williams, Shai, and Josh Giddey against Cade Cunningham, Asar, and Jaden Ivey. Those six players all defend. That's going to be fun. That's like a multiverse. That's kind of cool. And then Duren and Chet Holmgren, what you were talking about, that's going to be a fun matchup as well. That's just overall is going to be a fun game.
Like OKC's core and the Pistons core. I just think those are battles that I think a lot of fans, like maybe younger generation, because, you know, we're in our 30s. There's a lot of Pistons fans out there that are like, you know, anywhere from like 14 to 18 that don't have all the memories that we do, the Go in the Work crew. Like,
yep.
They're growing up on Cade Cunningham right now. They're growing up on Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren. Like, it could be the next generation of Pistons fans just, you know, watching, you know, a young OKC team and a young Detroit Pistons team. So that's really cool to think about.
The crazy thing is there are fans out there that are just like they like my son. He's going to be a basketball fan. He can't even talk. He's never even going to get to watch LeBron James play live. Probably the best basketball player individually he will ever watch is Luka Doncic to start off. Like, that guy will probably that will probably be his GOAT is Luka. That's going to be crazy to think about. But so we have the Trailblazers November 1st, and then the Pelicans. Is there any matchup you're interested in against the Trailblazers? They got Shadon Sharp and Scoot Henderson, and then Simons as well. But there's not anything specifically from that game that I'm really looking forward to. I'm going to watch it, but I don't know. There's no crazy matchup for me in that game.
Yeah, I like Portland. I'm not like really like, they have young talent, but like that's not like really a game where I was like, oh, you know, we got to watch.
Yeah.
I like New Orleans. I think the night after on Thursday, November 2nd, will Zion be healthy?
Yeah.
Will Brandon Ingram get out of his funk? Because he's struggling a lot right now, I guess, with Team USA, because he's used to having the ball in his hands. He's used to being the guy, and he's kind of a role player right now. He doesn't like it. Could the Pistons sneak one off because, you know, they're in a funk? You never know.
But, man, think about that matchup, though. Asar and Brandon Ingram. That's going to be a real – I think that might be the – I mean, I don't want to disrespect Zach LaVine, but that might be the toughest matchup at the beginning of the year for him. And I'm just saying Asar is going to get all these matchups. But, man, Brandon Ingram at 6'10", 6'11" against Asar, that's going to be fun. And then, yeah, that's probably the matchup I'm looking for the most from that game. I mean, a healthy Zion, that's going to be really cool. But I don't really know. Him and Isaiah Stewart might go at it. Him and Duren might go at it. But that Asar Brandon Ingram matchup, that's going to be fun to watch.
The Phoenix again. There's like 2 games I'm looking at November that I'm really excited for. I think Phoenix on November 5th at 3:00.
Another 3:00.
Another 3:00 game. Weird. It's like the NBA is making sure that Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal are rested up. Who knows why?
Something, jeez.
Yeah, I don't know. They get to play 3:00 games, but I think that's a game. I told you, I think they could sneak one off. They could sneak a game against Phoenix because I don't know if they're going to be firing on all cylinders. And there's one basketball and super teams like that. They take time to develop chemistry. I don't think they're just going to come off the gate, being like 15-0. I think they're going to be games where they lose to lesser teams because the chemistry's not there yet. And I don't know. Even DeAndre Ayton's kind of throwing shade at the Suns. I don't know if you saw that video of him saying that his Bahamas team is the best team he's ever played for in his life.
He went to an NBA Finals with the Phoenix Suns. What are you talking about?
I know, he's crazy.
No, but that's going to be a fun game too because last time Kevin Durant and Cade Cunningham were on the floor together, Cade Cunningham had a great game. So that's going to be cool. But again, I just talked about Asar Thompson and Brandon Ingram, but Asar and Kevin Durant, or Asar and Devin Booker, or Asar and Bradley Beal. And I keep bringing Asar's name up, but we talked about him at the beginning of the podcast. His defense looked incredible in Rico Hines. So you feel like he's going to get the toughest assignments. And man, that's just a matchup. That's just going to be a crazy matchup 1 through 3 for Asar. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I'm definitely excited about that. I just hate that it's on at 3:00. I hate that. I mean, good for us because we'll be able to still get the podcast off, but still. November 6th, though, the Warriors, new look Warriors. It's going to be fun to see what they're doing. And again, I keep looking at Asar, but that matchup, I hope Jaden Ivey gets to defend Steph Curry a little bit. That athleticism and that movement from him, that's going to be cool. Chris Paul and Cade Cunningham, I know it's a big size difference, but people have compared their games. So we'll see if Chris Paul tries to school him a little bit. That's going to be a fun matchup. And then, I don't know. I mean, Draymond Green and Isaiah Stewart, you feel like that could get a little chippy, but I don't know. That's just a game. That really is.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of great games early off in the season. Like, to see the Denver Nuggets, I'm looking ahead at the schedule, November 20th on a Monday. And then you have the Toronto Raptors. You're flying to Toronto the night before. That to me, I think those are 2 great games. You're versing the Raptors and then the Nuggets on a back-to-back. But the Nuggets game, I'll be interested to see, just to see how the Nuggets are. They did lose Bruce Brown, but they're still NBA champions. Seems like every time I scroll on Twitter, Nikola Jokic is drunk in another city. And I absolutely love that for him. I love that he's celebrating, and he's just so relatable to people. Like, he just doesn't give a shit.
So before we get into the Nuggets, the Nuggets game, I'll talk about that for a second. The matchup between Duren and the Joker, that's going to be some. I feel like the Nuggets are just going to come into Detroit and probably just destroy the Pistons. They're probably going to put on a masterclass, man. It's coming off the championship. They might be in cruise control. You might be able to get a win from them, but if they're firing on all cylinders, like Aaron Gordon cutting to the basket, Jamal Murray doing his thing, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope being back in Detroit, that's going to be fun, man.
Christian, I don't know. We just need that fan talking shit to Murray like last time, because the Pistons did beat the Nuggets last time they played in Detroit. So
yeah, but now they're coming off the championship.
Yeah, we'll see.
So what's the matchup, though, you're looking forward to in that game, since you circled it on your calendar?
Cade and Murray, to me, I think it's going to be something. Duren and Joker, I think will be a good matchup. And then I think the bench units are going to just go at it, personally. Denver has a fairly good bench. They drafted a couple kids out of the draft this year that I think are going to be really good. But to me, Denver has always been a team that I support, because I fell in love with Carmelo Anthony. and I've just kind of followed the Nuggets ever since then because I wanted the Pistons to draft Melo, but like I've always liked the Nuggets from afar. It's kind of like my I don't know, like a second team that I'll watch, like a league pass team.
One of my favorite, well, we can get in that here in a second too. One of my favorite basketball cards I have all time is Alex English in those old Denver Nuggets, those blue uniforms they used to have in the 80s. It's one of my favorite cards. He's low key one of my favorite players I never got to watch. He was just so smooth. But yeah, there's a lot of matchups in that game too. I think we talked about this last week. I'm not interested in seeing the Cavaliers for some reason, even though
Why?
Darius Garland. Yeah, I mean it's the Cavs. But
they kicked our ass every time we played.
Hey, well, when Killian Hayes defended Evan Mobley, that was a win for me. That was pretty cool. Are there any games before the Nuggets games you have circled on there? We have the 76ers at the Pistons, Pistons at the Bucks, Pistons at the Bulls, Hawks at the Pistons, then the Raptors and Cavaliers. Any of those games, those 6 games, any of those are you circling?
Not really. Like I can't stand Trae Young and the Hawks. But Trae Young is just really arrogant and cocky.
He's a villain, man. You gotta love it.
Nah, like I lost a lot of respect for him going on Gilbert Arenas' podcast saying he should have been on Team USA.
I mean, he should have been.
Yeah, but like you know, it's a phone call. All he has to do is to reach out to them.
I thought you were going to tell me he was about to like disrespect the Pistons. I'd be like, where did that come from? What did they do to him? New York should be the team he hates the most. Yeah, I mean, real quick though, I mean the Bucks, like I kind of always get bored watching the Bucks, even though Giannis is so great. 76ers again, it's one of those teams that I do get kind of bored watching. Even though they do have Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, and right now still James Harden. Bulls were this is the second time we're already to see him. I'm interested in the Hawks matchup though, just because again it comes down to Asar. I want to see him go against some of the NBA's best as a rookie. I want him thrown to the Sharks from game one, and because I think he can handle it, and it's going to be fun to watch him go against Trey or Murray or any of these guys. That's going to be fun. And then none of these other games, I'm not interested in the Cavs or the Raptors as much compared to the Hawks. That's probably the game I have circled. But what about individual matchups though for you?
I'm looking at the Lakers game. I think that'll be a game that 99% of a casual Piston fan will be at because it's going to be a home game and it's going to be on NBA TV. If you count that as a national televised game, some people do, some people don't. But anytime LeBron is in town, it seems like everyone's there. It's probably the most attended game when he does come to town. But individually, I want to see, Cade go up against LeBron. Cade loves LeBron. He even like Ashton has said that, Cade reminds him of a LeBron James, the way he gets everyone involved. So that's a matchup I'm looking at. I'm like, I want to see how Cade goes up against a older LeBron James, see if he can hold his own against them.
You're not interested in like the Austin Reeves, Cade Cunningham?
No. No, Austin Reeves is great, and apparently the Philippines think he's better than LeBron James. I don't know if you've seen like the footage of the Philippines with Austin Reeves, and they have such a strong fan base over in the Philippines for like Lakers because they're bandwagon fans. Let's be clear, and that's fine. But like, dude, it's funny, man. Like they're like following him around. Like every time he makes a shot, like the crowd erupts.
He's such a popular player. It's great. He does have a great game though. I will say that. Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to watch LeBron James, no matter what season he's in. He's just incredible, no matter what. Him and Cade, but there's not really too many interesting matchups from that game that I'm interested in. I do have a short list of players that I'm thinking of Cade specifically. To talk about Asar a lot, but guys I want to see him match up with this year that I think are going to be fun to watch. LaMelo Ball, Luka Doncic, Shai, and Tyrese Halliburton were the 4 guys that I'm really looking forward to just to see that one-on-one matchup with Cade. And, a couple of those guys were added to that list we'll talk about here in a little bit. But are there any individual matchups like for Cade that you're looking forward to, or any player on the Pistons?
Cade and Scotty Barnes. I mean, they have some history. One won Rookie of the Year, one didn't. Um, and this that whole class, Cade and Evan Mobley, even though they play two different positions, that's a guy that he's really tight with. Like, I don't know if I told you this, but I think that Cade Cunningham, Scotty Barnes, and Evan Mobley are going to be the next generation. And I'll throw Jalen Green in there too. I think the next generation of LeBron, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and Carmelo Anthony. I think those are going to be the next wave of players that just take over the league.
See, I feel like the era we're coming up into is kind of like that brief period when, that era when Michael Jordan retired and before LeBron James really became, like, before LeBron James entered the league, there was that brief period where they didn't know who the face of the NBA was going to be. And it was like Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Kobe Bryant, and then even some in the early 90s too, where rookies were just getting these crazy, ginormous contracts. And it felt like a lot of guys didn't live up to the hype. I feel like with the younger guys that are coming in, they're going to live up to the hype. And we're not going to have so much just a face of the NBA. Instead, we're going to have faces of the NBA. Like, it won't just be one individual player standing out amongst the rest. It will be just a bunch of guys that you can look out throughout the next couple of seasons, say, well, man, for a brief 2-year period, he was the best, but then he was the best, and he was the best. I feel like that's the kind of era we're coming into. Something we all wish. I don't know if we all wish it, but how I felt like the NBA was trying to be set up when Michael Jordan retired. It just didn't happen that way, just because of, for whatever reason. But I think it's going to be a class.
I think they already have the next crown when LeBron retires, and we both know who it is. It's Victor Wembanyama. That's the next guy that ESPN is hoping can carry the league for the next 20 years.
It can't be a big man though. It has to be a guard player. I feel like someone that has I feel like if anything right now, they're really trying to make it Anthony Edwards as the next phase. Which I agree with Victor. He's going to be popular, but the face of the NBA, I always feel like it has to be like a guard or a wing player.
Yeah, Game Knots said it perfectly. He thinks it's going to be either Luka, Vic, or Edwards. Anthony Edwards.
I think Luka as well, too. I said that a few years ago. Because I always feel like the NBA has been waiting for a foreign player to take. I mean, the game's already global. It's already huge across the world. But if you had a foreign player that had a pretty cool game that people could relate to, and I feel like you do with Luka Doncic, it would just take them to a whole nother level. And yeah, maybe you're right. I think he could be the face, but I feel like right now at this specific moment, they're really trying to hype up Anthony Edwards for good reason, though. He's an exciting player.
Yeah, like I look at the hype with Victor Wembanyama this year. And we covered the draft. I think we were one of the very few Pistons podcasts that we talked about draft stuff all the way up until the draft. We tried to keep you guys informed of who these guys are and who to look out for. I just think the hype that he's getting, like, I know we don't talk about NBA 2K, but being rated at 84 overall, which is really high. I think Cade was like a 84 or 85 last year. Getting 19 nationally televised games. Being the first overall pick, getting all these endorsements. Like, I think the NBA, they're looking for that new face. It was never Kevin Durant during LeBron's era, not even Steph Curry, really. It was always LeBron. It wasn't Giannis. It was always LeBron. I think they look at Victor and that they just see dollar signs, and I think that's what the NBA is. They're a brand. I think Anthony Edwards, he could be the face of the league, but his mouth would get him in trouble too much. Because he speaks his mind way too much. And I absolutely love that about Anthony Edwards. It reminds me a lot of a young Kevin Garnett, where he just speaks his mind. He doesn't give a crap. But I think the NBA is just looking for that new face. And I think it's going to be Victor. I really do.
I think it's either going to be Luka or Anthony Edwards. Or some other guy that comes in with just like, I don't know who was talking about this. This was years ago. And I'm going to like butcher it. But they were always talking about if a guy has like a 4-letter name that's just easy and rolls off the tongue, and it's synonymous with that player. Like when you think of Cade, once the moment you say Cade, you think of Cade Cunningham. When you say Luka, you think of Luka Doncic. When you say Ant, and you're thinking, you don't think of Anthony Davis, you think of Anthony Edwards. It's just something like MJ, Michael Jordan. It's just something that is just like real quick and easy to remember these guys by. It's going to be someone that just has a very easy name, and that will be, I don't know, someone was making that up. I'm butchering it though. I don't want to keep embarrassing myself. Are there any more games you want to talk about on the regular season schedule?
No, it's funny because you do butcher names once in a while, and Mr. My City, he's convinced that you do it on purpose.
I probably do. It's
it's okay, man. Like if that's your shtick, that's your shtick, and you've been fooling me for a damn year. Just trying to get a reaction out of me.
Dude, I mess up on some names. I apologize. I'll keep learning. But are there any more games on the regular season?
I don't think so. I think that this next topic, a lot of fans probably saw it. And Bleacher Report is drinking the bleach again.
Yeah, let's talk about this, man. Was this Bleacher Report? Okay, it was Bleacher Report. Top guards under 25. Their list: Luka, Anthony Edwards, Ja Morant, Tyrese Halliburton, LaMelo Ball, Darius Garland, Scoot Henderson, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Williams, and Josh Giddey. I cannot argue with the top two names, Luka and Anthony Edwards. They should be 1 and 2. I don't think you can make an argument for anybody else on this list being ahead of those two guys. But I think what you can make an argument for number 3 on down to number 10. But what were your initial thoughts when you saw this list?
So for people that don't know what we're talking about, Bleacher Report came out with a top NBA guards under the age of 25 years old. And Lance has named them off 1 through 10. But if you guys weren't paying attention or listening, Luka was 1, Anthony Edwards was 2, Ja Morant was 3, Tyrese Halliburton was number 4, LaMelo Ball 5, Darius Garland 6, Scoot Henderson 7, Cade Cunningham 8, Jalen Williams 9, and Josh Giddey 10. My reaction and my only problem with this list was I don't understand how LaMelo Ball is number 5 and he missed a lot of games last season. How Cade Cunningham's 8. I don't understand that.
I mean, do you really think that Ja Morant has a higher ceiling than all of these guys?
I think if you're looking at just the player he is, the type of numbers he puts up, I do feel like the top 3 I don't have a problem with. My only problem is 5 through 10.
Do you feel like LaMelo should be higher or lower?
I think he should be lower personally. I don't have a problem with Halliburton be a 4 because he's a great player. I think there's a debate with Scoot Henderson right now.
Okay, so how are we looking at the list? Says NBA guards under 25 with the highest ceilings. Mm-hmm. Are you looking at it with just as in like just highest ceilings, or are you looking at it as the players they are today and what they did last year?
I'm looking at the ceilings. Like, I don't honestly believe LaMelo Ball has a higher ceiling than Cade Cunningham right now.
See, I think LaMelo should probably be number 3 if we're just talking about high ceilings, because I feel like there's still so much more to his game, and we haven't seen it all yet. I feel like he has a higher ceiling than Ja Morant. I feel like Ja Morant is at the ceiling right now. I don't know. I mean, unless he develops a 3-point shot, because only shot 30%. I just don't see how Ja Morant continues to climb. And you have, I think Tyrese Halliburton can get better. I think he has a higher ceiling. So my problem is really just with 3. I think LaMelo at 5 is too low. I think Cade at 8 is he should be higher because he's a 6'6" point guard. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things we were just talking about at the beginning of the podcast, and he's coming back from an injury. The jump shot looks smooth. He's using his size in the post. I don't know how much more room for growth there is for Darius Garland either, because he's a shorter guard. I don't see how you can put shorter athletic guards ahead of bigger jumbo guards, because if we look back, like shorter athletic guards, they have, some of them have high peaks, but they're not really none of these guys I feel like are going to reinvent the wheel when it comes to guard play in the NBA.
I am not high on LaMelo Ball. I would have him like 9.
Okay.
I'm just not high on him as a player. He's an inefficient scorer. He had flashy plays with Miles Bridges. You saw he didn't have Miles Bridges last year, and they weren't a playoff team. Granted, he was injured, but I'm just not high on LaMelo Ball as a player with his ceiling. I'm just not. I think 5 was generous by Bleacher Report. It was really generous. I think he should be at a lower tier. I'm higher on Darius Garland as a point guard, as a guard, than LaMelo Ball, because Darius Garland showed me last year that he can be a top point guard, a top 10 point guard in the NBA. I think the Scoot Henderson hype is hype. We have to wait and see what's there. If he develops a consistent 3-point shot, yes, he could. You could put him in this top 5, but I think it's premature to put him in a top list already. But I would switch Cade Cunningham with LaMelo Ball. I really would. I think Cade has a ceiling that we haven't really seen him reach what he's actually capable of. I think he's just scratching the surface. And I think players like LaMelo Ball, yeah, they come out and they have a triple-double and he's shooting 25% from the field. Like LaMelo Ball, to me, I think if you're a box score watcher, it looks great. But if you actually watch the games, you'll know that he's a really inefficient scorer. He's a poor defender, and he just makes those flashes ESPN passes. Like, I don't really understand why you're not as high on John Morant as you are on LaMelo Ball. Is it the height? Is it maybe you kind of fall into like this highlight culture where you kind of see LaMelo Ball make these fancy passes and stuff like that? Like, I want to know personally why you would have John Morant or LaMelo Ball over John Morant. I'm really curious.
Well, I just think because of the ceiling factor. I mean, like, I just feel like there's more growth for LaMelo than there is John Morant. I feel like John Morant, like, we're seeing the best of him right now. I don't know how much higher he can climb, but I feel like with LaMelo Ball, I mean, he shot 38% from 3 this past year, 84% from the line, only 41% from the field, but 23, 8, and 6 with 1 steal per game. Like, I still feel like as a scorer and as a playmaker, there's more room for LaMelo's game than there is John Morant's. Like, if John Morant became a better 3-point shooter, sure, but I just don't know. I just feel like he's at his ceiling. So I would actually drop John Morant a little bit. And I mean, same with Darius Garland. Again, like, he's a 6'1" point guard. He had a great last season, but how much higher can he climb being an undersized guard? At least when you have height, there are different facets to your game that you can add, like becoming a post player, operating in the mid range. But when you're shorter, like, you can do some things, but I feel like you're more limited. So that's why I don't know why they're higher on the list than some of these other guys.
Yeah, I'm just not high on LaMelo Ball. I really haven't. I just think Cade was very. I don't think he was ranked properly, and I think a lot of people agree. I think a lot of people are like, "Well, where's Trae Young on this list? He's not on this list. He's under 25." There are some people that were under 25 that weren't on this list, and I think when you look, even Josh Giddey, to me, I thought was just really low on this list for the type of season that he had last year. I thought Josh Giddey. I mean, if you look at Josh Giddey and you look at LaMelo Ball, they put up very similar stats. Very similar stats.
Oh, I love Josh Giddey too. Well, Trae Young, he's almost 25 years old. I think they just did this for 25 heading in. It's kind of crazy that Luka is, man, he's been playing for a while and he's still under the age of 25. That is crazy. And you still see more room for him. And like, same with Anthony Edwards. I just don't see a higher ceiling for John Morant. I think where he's at, I'd be okay with LaMelo still being at 5, but I would rather I agree with you. Cade Cunningham should be moved up a little bit further, a little bit higher than 8th as well. But I don't know. I just have a problem with Ja and Darius Garland. I like their games. I just think there's only so much more they can do just because height does play a huge factor for me. I feel like, I don't think either of these guys are going to start shooting it like Steph Curry does, but dude, they're 6'1" and 6'2". Like, how much higher can they get as players? Like, I got to stop like leaning so much more on their height. But I
Well,
mean,
you answered my question though. You're looking at the height,
yeah,
but
no, I am, because I do think like just a guy that's 6'7" or 6'6" playing the point guard position, they're naturally just going to have a higher ceiling than someone that's 6'1", just because you could do more things as a player because of your height.
yeah, like when I look at this list, I still think Cade Cunningham and Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Halliburton have the highest ceiling. You could even put Scoot Henderson in that category of having probably the highest ceilings out of this top 10 list. Like,
Yeah, because he hasn't played yet.
I mean, I think the hype with Scoot is warranted because I think he's going to be one of those just electric point guards that is just going to dominate the league. But he hasn't played yet. Like, you got to pump the brakes a little bit.
Why do you think they didn't have someone? Why do you think they left a guy like Jalen Green off the list?
That's a great question. I know some Rockets fans were kind of salty. They're like, "Where's Jalen Green? Why isn't he on this list?"
Yeah, I mean, this seems more like a point guards list. I mean, I know Jalen Williams is an off guard, but like Josh Giddey, he's kind of more of like that point guard mold, trying to lead a team and get everybody involved. Scoot Henderson's a point guard. Darius Garland is a point guard. Yeah, they're all point guards except for really Jalen Williams. Well, and Anthony Edwards, I guess, but I don't know.
So we do have a question from you from a viewer. Since you do like guys that are really tall, Ben wants to know if you have a Ben Simmons jersey.
I mean, if someone wants to buy me one, sure. I actually really did like Ben Simmons when he was at LSU. I thought he would take over the league, but I don't know why that dude can't shoot. I don't know. It's just, I mean, it seemed like he was like a 7-foot point guard. That was so cool to watch. But no, I don't have a Ben Simmons jersey.
People are just, they heard the LaMelo take and they just don't agree with it. They were like, "Wait, what?"
I just think, well, we're talking about ceilings. I just think there's more to his game, like, than, what he showed. And I think he can. I mean, how much higher do you think John Morant can go as a point guard or as a player? I mean, we'll just say player. Like,
I think he could be an MVP. I really do.
Really? I don't think he could be an MVP. I mean, I don't really think anybody on this list other than Luka and Anthony Edwards is going to really be in an MVP conversation. I don't see John Morant winning MVP. I don't see LaMelo Ball winning it either, but I just don't. I think John Morant, we're seeing his peak. We're seeing how good he can be. Now, there's certain things you can add to your game as you become more of a veteran, but I just don't see the ceiling being that much higher for him at the moment. I don't know. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, maybe it's because I've seen John Morant so much in person. And if you watch him in person, just the athletic ability, the way he can get up and down the court, the way he gets teammates involved, and the team he has around him. That's why I believe he could win MVP. I know it's a regular season award, and I think the Grizzlies are in great position to have a great season. But I'm more higher on John Morant than LaMelo Ball just because he just makes great winning basketball plays, and LaMelo at times just takes really low IQ shots, and you're just like, what the hell?
I know, but I mean, still 38% from three. That's pretty good. He's a career 38% shooter. Dude, on 10 attempts last year, and he was 39% his second year in the league at 8 attempts. That's crazy. I mean, yeah, he's not overall a great shooter, but it's everything else he can do. I mean, 23, 8, and 6. That's pretty good. I don't know. I'm a little bit higher on LaMelo, and he's only 21 years old. That's the crazy part. He's 4 years before it's 4 seasons before he's off this list. That's
I've just haven't been high on him. I was higher on Tyrese Halliburton coming out of the draft than LaMelo Ball. People looked at me like I was crazy.
I was not super high on LaMelo Ball when he was coming out, but like John Morant is 23 right now. And yeah, I mean, he's 24. He's 24 years old. So do you really think his game will get that much better than LaMelo, who is 21?
I do. I'm not high on LaMelo. I just haven't been, but we could move on to the next topic because it does have to do with the Pistons and the Bad
Well,
Boys.
but before we do that, let's talk about the other list that was out there by Hoops Hype with the big man leaving Jalen Duren off of it.
I think that was Bleacher Report too, by the way.
Was it Bleacher Report? Okay.
Yeah.
I think I have that. I can pull this up. I hated this list, by the way. Yeah, you're right. It was Bleacher Report. I don't know why I thought it was. So they got Victor W. I'm not even going to. Wembenyama. I'm going to say it right this time.
There we go.
Zion Williamson, number 2. Chet Holmgren, number 3. He has climbed up some people's ladders because just a few weeks ago, it just seemed like he was completely, people had no faith in him. Evan Mobley at number 4. Jaren Jackson Jr. at 5. Jabari Smith Jr. ever since he picked on James Wiseman. Walker Kessler at number 7. Sengun at number 8. And then Okongwu at number 9. Then Nick Claxton at number 10. That's crazy to me too. But these are all top 10 bigs under 25 with the highest ceiling.
My only problem with this list is having Onyeka Okongwu number 9. He hasn't really shown anything in the league. Like, he's been injured a majority of his career. I would probably swap Nick Claxton at number 9 and put Jalen Duren in that top 10. I even did a side-by-side comparison with Okongwu and Duren on StatHead.com. Jalen Duren in his rookie year averaged more points, rebounds, assists, and steals per game than Okongwu has in 178 career games.
Yeah, I feel like this is
Okongwu was like, he was really high coming out of the draft, but the guy just cannot stay healthy. And he plays behind Clint Capella, so he doesn't get playing time as it is.
Okay, but Nick Claxton is 24. How is he on this list? Like, he's entering his prime years. I feel like he's a good player, 13-9 with 2 assists, shooting 70% from the field. But again, are we talking like defensive player of the year here? Is he just going to be suddenly become an all-star in his 5th season? Like, I don't understand that. Jalen Duren, he's 19 years old. He should honestly be right behind Victor Wembanyama because he's so young. Like, he's still a teenager. His ceiling should be incredibly high. That doesn't make any sense. And then Jaren Jackson Jr., I don't know how old he is, but coming in at number 5, he just came off a defensive player of the year. Like, he could win a couple more. He's still young enough to do that. Zion Williamson, yeah, I mean, if you're putting him at number 2, you should probably just put him at number 1 because if he's healthy, he's a top 10 player in the NBA.
Yeah, lists like this, they're so debatable. When I saw Sengun at 8, it just kind of let me know what Bleacher Report thinks of, the centers around the league. Because I think Sengun could easily jump into the top 3. I think Sengun, to me, I know a lot of Pistons fans hate Rockets fans, but he's got such an array of post moves. He's a good offensive player. Defensively, he's not that great, but I think he could easily jump into the top 3. I think he's going to have a breakout season under Udoka. Like I said, I would put Duren at maybe 9 or 10. Even though he didn't have like the most dominant rookie year, he's under 25, like you said. I don't think Zion should be in here. I think everyone else. I think everyone else in here is fine, but I would take Zion out. I think he's already proven himself of what his ceiling is when he's healthy. Everyone else in here, it's just like, yeah, like Jabari Smith Jr. had a great summer league. He could be a guy that's a two-way big. Like, you never know. But everyone else is just like, even Nick Claxton had a great season. Like, I think he finished like 2nd or 3rd in defensive player of the year.
Still, though, I mean, there's no way his ceiling is higher than Jalen Duren's. He's already 24. I would take out Nick Claxton and Okongwu. I'd move up Sengun. I'd put Sengun in my top 5. Yeah, I kind of agree with you on Zion Williamson, but I get why. Yeah, I don't know how much more there is to his, other than just staying healthy. Like, I don't know what more can add or how much higher his ceiling is. So I'd remove Zion Williamson, but I get why they have him on here. So
Yeah,
I'd go.
I mean, I
I'd
would
go.
take Jackson Jr. out too. Like,
I think there's still a little bit more to his game offensively. I still think this ceiling. I don't know though, because I don't think he's. I think Zion Williams closer to his peak because we've seen. I don't know. He's been so great when he's healthy too. I would keep
yeah,
Jaren
like
Jackson Jr. on the list, but I would have Sengun in my top 5.
for me, I would take out Zion and Jaren Jackson Jr. and then you could make room and Nick Claxton because I think they're all established already. Um, if you take out Zion, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Nick Claxton, you have all up and coming young players in this league that arguably could be a top 10 center in the next 5 to 10 years.
Is there anybody we're forgetting that we're not?
I like I said, I don't have a all 32 teams like on the top of my head. Like I'm sure there's a center that we're sleeping on because we're Pistons fans and we don't watch a ton of games. But like, is Wendell Carter Jr. over 25? I feel like he is.
What about Paolo Banchero? Because this isn't just centers.
Oh God, I didn't even notice that. He's not even in here. Oh God, man, this list is trash. Why are we talking about it?
Well, why not even have someone like Naz Reid over like Nick Claxton? I mean, again, they're both 24, but I feel like we haven't seen everything from Naz Reid because he's been coming off the bench and playing a more diminished role than I think his talent says he can be.
I didn't even notice Paulo wasn't in here, man.
I was not.
Wow. How do you not have the rookie of the year who plays the power forward center position in here? Like I don't get that. Wow.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's a trash ass list. But like I said, Bleacher Report's drinking the bleach again.
Yeah, I don't know if they're trying to just because it seems like I don't know what they're trying to do.
They're just baiting at this point.
They should have had Paolo on here. That's crazy that he's not. Yeah, they should have had Jalen Duren and they should have had Paolo on the list. I mean, how high do you think, if you were to redo this list, how high would Jalen Duren go for you on a list of top 10 bigs under 25?
It'd probably be like in the 10 to 7 range, like around there. Like if I looked at every young center under 25 of all 32 teams, he would definitely crack my list for sure.
In your top 5, you said?
Top 10. Like
Okay.
if I looked at like all the teams in the NBA and kind of looked at, players under 25, he would definitely make my list. Same with Paolo Banchero. Like that's insane to me.
Yeah, Paolo would be on my list. I think Duren would probably go number 7. I think I don't know. This list it's trash. Let's just move on. I can't even stand to look at it.
Okay.
It's making me vomit in my mouth. So Charles Barkley, he said, as much as I love Steph Curry and I love Steph Curry, I don't know how many times he can say that. Can you imagine the bad boys beating the hell out of? Why would I want to imagine that? If you think he could take those blows that John Talley, Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer, those body checks that they were putting on Michael and Scotty and myself and guys like that, you really think Steph Curry wouldn't break? How did this even be brought up that they were Charles Barkley was talking about Steph Curry and the bad boys?
So he was on Bill Simmons' podcast, and they were talking about how back in their day, back in Barkley's day, I should say, that modern medicine wasn't what it was back then that it is now. They're talking like, hey, if Bird played in this generation with his bad back, he probably would have played another 5-6 years. If Curry played in the 80s, he probably wouldn't have played as long because he had the early ankle injuries in his career. They're just kind of talking like if the bad boy Pistons played against Steph Curry, he would be hobbling every night, and he'd probably just be shooting from the outside. He wouldn't even try to go around the painted area with Rick Mahorn and Dennis Rodman and John Sally and all those guys. I think that's what Charles Barkley was trying to say. And I know a lot of people took offense to what Barkley was saying because Steph Curry, in my opinion, I think he's kind of catapulted. I don't know if you saw, he thinks that he's like the second best point guard behind Magic Johnson as of late. Like he's kind of like,
I have no issue with that. He changed the game.
Yeah, I know some people still think it's Isaiah, but hey, those are debates, and I'll let fans have those debates. I'm not going to tell you how to feel, but I think that's what Barkley was trying to say, like saying, hey, like if Steph played Meyer against those bad boy Pistons, Yeah, he probably wouldn't have played more than 6 years.
See that I hate when they do that though. Like I hate that we don't think that these guys would adjust their game. Steph Curry is going to be great no matter what era he plays in, whether he plays for 6 years or whether he plays for 20 years. He's going to be great no matter what. My biggest issue is why do they? I mean, I get why they always bring the bad boys up because you see primarily a ton of highlights of them knocking people over, but every team was doing that in this era. They just say, yeah, it'd be hard for him to play in the 80s because a handful, like, why not even just throw in Charles Oakley's name? He was pretty rough. Kurt Rambis, I'm pretty sure he clotheslined a guy after he got clotheslined. Kevin McHale, he was pretty dirty too. I just have more of an issue with it that it's always the bad boys and it's always these guys being brought up. But whatever, your reputation, that's what it is. I think Steph Curry would be fine. I think he would adjust. I think he would be tougher. I mean, if he grew up always playing basketball that way, he'd be used to it by the time he got to the NBA.
Yeah, like this is where I would probably disagree with Chuck. I think Steph Curry would adapt. Because I think of guys like Mark Price on the Cavs, who was kind of a outside shooter. Steph's dad kind of played in that era too, and he was a good shooter. Like I think Steph would be fine. I think they think that if Steph's not going to go to the lane if he sees a Rick Mahorn, right, or a Bill Laimbeer. He's just not. He's just going to play from the outside. He's going to play from the 3-point line. He's not going to go and try to get layups or anything like that because that's not really his game. I think he would do fine in that era. And I kind of hate that a lot of the older generation can't just give the younger generation their flowers without saying like, oh, you couldn't play in my era. You're too soft. Like, I hate that.
Yeah, they just don't appreciate greatness. I even feel like if you were just to pick Steph Curry up and put him in that area, he'd be fine. Like just how he is right now. I think he'd be fine. I think he'd adjust. I don't know. I think these conversations are crazy. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of guys from every era. I mean, the further you go back, the less the player pool is. But I feel like you can even go back in the 70s and like it's like a grab claw machine. If you were to pick Jerry West and put him in today's NBA and give him like a week, he'd still probably average like 28 points per game in today's NBA. I mean, if you ever go back and watch some of his old games, because I know there's a few of them on YouTube and I've done this, he looks a step ahead. He looks like a modern player playing in that era. And I feel like you did the same thing with like Pistol Pete. He'd be fine. If you did it with Dominique Wilkins, and that's a little bit closer to this era, he'd be perfectly fine. And then I feel like you can take pretty much every player in today's NBA, put it back in those eras, and they'd be fine. They'd adjust and they'd be great. But I don't know. I'm all over the place right now.
I absolutely love our followers. Someone said imagine Killian Hayes in the 80s.
He'd be a small forward, probably.
Oh my god, like yeah. I'm kind of mad that like I was born like in the early 90s and I didn't get to witness like the Jordan or the Bad Boy era. I'm like stuck watching like documentaries or shout out to Keith Black on Twitter. He always like posts like highlights like on VHS tapes. So that's what I'm like kind of forced of watching. I never got to like grow up with the Bad Boys. I grew up with the Golden Work Pistons and Grant Hill, like the tail end of the Grant Hill era. So I don't know, man. I really wish I would have grown up during like that Bad Boy era. It would have been cool.
I'm glad I was born in 1990. I'm perfectly fine with what the basketball I've gotten to see. I don't want to be older than I am right now. I was born when the Pistons won the championship. It's great. I'm happy with that. I'm glad the basketball got to watch. I'm thankful for YouTube and other streaming services where I can go back and watch these old games. But man, I could not imagine growing up in the 80s. It'd be weird. I could not imagine myself. I'd have like weird hair, more weird hair than I have now. Probably wouldn't have a beard. I don't know what I would be. I'd be a totally different person. It would suck. Before we move on to Q&A, I did want to keep this going. Like every week, we talk about two players. I'm going to throw two names out, and you're going to tell me their stats or project their stats. So let's go with Monte Morris, and let's go with Lasar Thompson. We haven't done a young player.
So I'll start with Monte first. I said a couple weeks ago, I think he's going to have a breakout season under Monty Williams. I think for Monte Morris, he's going to average 12 and a half a game. 4 assists, 3 rebounds, and shoot close to 40% from three and around like 80% from the free throw line. I think he's going to have a real defined role and be a veteran backup point guard that Monty Williams really leans on. As for Asar, that's hard because I don't know if he's going to start or if he's going to play off the bench like as a 6-man role. Like ESPN has him as a projected starting small forward. And you got guys here locally like James Edwards that think he's not going to start. So I don't really know who to believe. I think for stats, I think for him, I'm thinking around 9 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and a half a block a game. That's what I'm thinking.
I forget what I said on Twitter, but this was such a long time ago when I said it. But I would say for Asar, 11 points. I'm going to say 5 rebounds, and I'll say 3 assists, just because I do feel like he's going to start game 1. And then I feel like he's going to get a steal and a block per game. I feel like it's just going to be something crazy where he averages a full steal and a full block per game as a rookie. That's what I think is going to happen for Asar. Monty, yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think it's going to be around 12 points per game. I'll say 5 assists and probably around 2 rebounds. Pretty much the season he had, his final season in Denver when he started 74 games for him. He averaged 13 points per game, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, and he shot 40% from 3 on 4 attempts per game and 40. He's just such a real efficient player with the ball and shooting the ball. So I'm going to go ahead and say he's probably going to be one of our big time players off the bench this season. He's going to be great.
Yeah, I really do. I think getting him, it's kind of like Monty Williams, Ricky Rubio in Detroit. He always talks very highly of Ricky Rubio. So I think Monte Morris can kind of fit into that role and define that role off the Pistons bench and kind of lead that second unit. So I've been really high on him since we did trade for him. And I mean, we got him for basically nothing. And he's one of the best backup point guards in the league. And his assist to turnover ratio is incredibly low, which I absolutely love for a backup point guard.
0.8 for his career for his turnovers and 4 assists. Last year, he averaged 5.3 assists to 1 turnover. Crazy. That's considered a bad year when he's averaging 1 turnover per game. So I think so far from the players we've talked about for projections, we've done Monte, Asar just right now, Jaden Ivey and Isaiah Stewart, I believe those 2, and then Bojan and Burks, right? Are those the 6 we've talked about?
Yeah, I think so. We haven't talked about Duran. We can do that next week.
Oh, we'll figure out who we're going to talk about next week. But yeah, that was a pretty easy one with those 2 guys. Do we have any Q&A questions?
We do. We got one from Ben because we were just talking about Asar. And he wanted to know, what's our guess on Asar's shooting percentage on wide open kick out threes this year?
Oh, man, I think his 3-point percentage is going to be like 32%. But wide open, oh, man, I could see like 34 to 35%, which is crazy because like I know he didn't shoot the ball super well, but I feel like they're really going to be working with him on his jump shot, and he's going to come in with a ton of confidence. I feel like it will dip throughout the year, but if I'm just talking about averages for the entire year on wide open kick out threes, probably around like 34, 35%. Yeah,
so for what he's going to shoot from 3, I think I'm going to go like 31% from 3 this year.
Okay.
Just being fair, I don't, he, like I said, he could shoot like 34, 35, who knows? But for your question, Ben, on wide open kick out threes, I think what we saw a little bit in the Rico Hines runs where he did knock a wide open 3-pointer. I think I'm going to go like 40%.
Wow.
Because I believe in the jump shot because I know he works on it a lot. I know he's a workhorse. I know he's in the gym like 3-4 times a day. I think that's something that he would probably tell you if you asked him that that's something that he really wants to focus on. I think like a wide open 40%. I think that's not too high and it's not too low for his rookie season. I think he's more than capable of hitting it.
Did you see that someone, I don't know what it was, but I saw it on Reddit. It was like Jaden Ivey's was 47% on wide open threes. I tried looking that up. I did not see that number on wide open threes, but 40% from Asar. I said 35, dude. You went 5 percentage points higher than me. That's crazy.
I just believe in it. I think that he's such a gym rat that I don't know if you've watched any of those Overtime Elite, like on their YouTube channel, of him working with Kevin Ollie or just working out with skill development coaches. But like, just that kid's work ethic, it would not surprise me if, you look up on Spectrum, like wide open 3-point shots, and he's like around 39-38%. Would not surprise me at all.
Man, that's going to be crazy. That's a hell of a good percentage. Yeah, I'm going to stick with 35. I think that's more than fair. I might be too late, though. And that's me believing in the jump shot.
Yeah, it's just like the more I watch him, whether it's like in an interview, because he doesn't lack confidence, or whether it's just, workouts with Overtime Elite or the Rico Hines stuff, I just think that the jump shot to me is going to develop because he's going to work on it tirelessly. And I think he's willing to learn and willing to be teachable, which I think is really big in the NBA. A lot of guys just come out when they get drafted, say, hey, I'm the number 5 pick. I don't have to listen to you. I don't think he's like that. I think he just kind of has his ego out the door, and he's willing to learn and willing to put in the work.
Okay. We have another question?
No, we don't have too many, but I was thinking of one the other day. This is a really random question, but do you believe that the NBA will eventually make Minnesota an Eastern Conference team?
Ooh, I like that. They should have done that already. I feel like if they added 2 new teams that were in the Western Conference, like if they brought a team to Vegas and brought a team back to Seattle, I think because at least one team would have to relocate, right? Into a different conference. They wouldn't have to relocate cities, but Minnesota, they'd have a much easier time in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, like put them in the Central Division. I don't know. Like, I think that would be cool because they're close enough.
Yeah, they should be. What if the NBA changed it to North and South conferences? How crazy would that be?
That'd be weird. Because I was just thinking, because I know NFL and NBA are completely different. But like, if you look at the NFC North, it's Minnesota, Green Bay, Chicago, and Detroit.
Yeah.
Why not just do the same thing? Minnesota's right there. There's no need for them to be a Western Conference team.
Or like when they have the Giants and NFC team, and the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills and AFC team. I mean, that probably has something to do more with like the history of the NFL than anything, but still kind of weird. I don't know how they do their thing. But yeah, I agree with you. Minnesota should be an Eastern Conference team. They should be. Oh, that'd be incredible.
Yeah. Oh, we do have a question from David Ross. Shout out to David. Kincaid played I'm assuming that's the Luka role point forward. The Luka. I like it. And I think we talked about this when he was running that Team USA Select, that he was kind of playing that Luka Doncic role, and hilariously Luka sat out against Team USA, so they didn't even have to worry about that. But I do think Cade Cunningham can play that type of role with the Pistons. I think he's more than capable of it. He's a smart basketball player with a high IQ, 100%. I think he can do it. What about you, Lance?
I think he can, but I don't know if that's like the best use of that heliocentric offense. I just don't feel like that's the best use of his skills. I think we will see him run the show a lot. I just don't want him to control like 90% of the offense. Like we were talking about earlier, I loved him getting down in the post and using his size and playing a little off the ball, something we don't really see from Luka a lot. I just don't want him to get stuck where everything Cade has to touch the ball on every possession. I just don't like that as much, I mean, it's cool that he can play it, and it's nice that he has that in his bag where he can just take over a game in any one-on-one situation. But I want to see more of an overall team effort. I want to see guys moving and cutting. I want to see guys playing off the ball. I think that would make him more of a complete player. But I definitely think he can do it.
Yeah, same here. I think he's more capable of it. He's such a smart basketball player, but now all these questions are coming in. I feel like people just wait. They have the podcast on, but they're not listening to it. And then when we say Q&A, they like run across their, I don't know, their living room and grab their phone. Oh, it's Q&A. Let's go. But
I hope they're listening to us. Man, come on.
I know some people do that when they're at work or whatever. This is a brand new listener, Rasheed Wallace's bald spot, goated YouTube name. Any predictions with Killian? New to the podcast, so don't know if you've covered that a lot lately. We've covered Killian a lot lately this year. Prediction with Killian, I'll let you start since he's your favorite player.
He is my favorite player. Okay, no joke. When the Pistons first drafted him, I was absolutely in love with the pick. It always came down to Killian and Tyrese Halliburton for me. I was dead wrong. Tyrese Halliburton's amazing. I didn't think he would be bad. It's just that when people were talking about him negatively, I kind of fell into that where I'm like, maybe his jump shot won't translate. Maybe it will be hard for him to get a shot off. Maybe he is just more of a spot up shooter. Can he create his own shot? Like I started falling talk to him about him that way. But man, like I really did love Killian. If we're talking stats wise, I think it's probably like maybe 5 or 6 points per game, maybe 2 or 3 rebounds, 2 or 3 assists. He might throw in a steal. I think he's going to be buried on the bench, and it's going to be very hard for him to get minutes on the team this year. There might be a brief window where he does play pretty well. I think it's over for Killian, and I really want to see him maximize himself defensively and really learn to play off the ball, like make some Bruce Brown cuts, be versatile that way, where you can be a Swiss Army knife off the bench. That's the only way I think Killian really makes something of himself in a career, is if he becomes that Swiss Army knife. I think it's over for him as a potential starting point guard in the NBA.
Yeah, so with Killian, what I will say is two things. And I've said this multiple times on this podcast, especially this summer. Either he will be traded or the Pistons will keep him on ice in case there is an injury to Monte Morris. I think he's a third string point guard right now as we're recording this in August, the end of August. I just, to piggyback off of Lance, I don't know how they would use him. I think he's talented. I think when you look at him, his defense is something that the Pistons definitely could use. I think his passing is great. The only thing with him is the jump shot is not always consistent. The form looks great, but it doesn't always fall. I think this year was probably his most where he's developed as a basketball player. He started, finishing around the rim more. He started hitting those mid-range jump shots. His three-point shots started to fall at a higher clip. I think he developed a lot this year. But trading for Monte Morris, to me, I thought was a writing on the wall for him as a player for the Pistons. Now, do I think he could start? I don't. I think at best he's a backup point guard, and that's perfectly okay. He has a skill set to be a backup point guard, a guy that can play great defense, switch, and pass. Like you don't need to be averaging like 25 points a game as a backup point guard. But I don't really know what the Pistons are going to do with him. Obviously, it's really telling that they were going to include him in a Bojan trade. That's what Dallas wanted, I guess. But a lot of reporters have made it clear that the Pistons are telling teams he's available. But I just don't know what his future really holds.
It's kind of sad because he's a really good free throw shooter, which kind of indicates a good form. But I feel like every time he shoots the ball, it's different than the time before he shot the ball. Like I feel like he shoots it five times a game, all 5 different ways, whether it's like him fading back or going straight up or leaning forward or the elbows tucked or the elbows untucked. It just is so weird. Like there's no consistency in his shot. Like sometimes the form looks really good, but I don't know. I feel like really if he wants to stay in the NBA, really focus on defense, become a specialist on that side of the ball. And you can play off the ball even if you don't have a jump shot, but you have to be able to make cuts to the basket. You have to be willing to throw some screens out there, maybe do a couple rolls. I don't know. There's just so much more to basketball than just playing one way. And I feel like there's potential for him to still have a career in the NBA. It's that he's just going to have to change his game dramatically and focus on other areas than being a point guard. Because I think that ship has sailed.
I think if he wants to stay in the league longer, he's going to have to watch a lot of film on Marcus Smart. I think that's a player that he can model his game after. They're very similar players. Obviously, Marcus Smart is not the passer that Killian is, but defensively, they're very similar. And Marcus Smart coming out of college was not a knockdown shooter, but he's become an average shooter at best. So I don't know. I kind of like the idea of Killian being on the team just in case there is an injury because it is a long NBA season. And to me, I think that would be a luxury of having a player of his caliber off the bench just in case. If you can't get anything valuable for him in the open trade market, just don't trade him. Just have him on the bench.
Well, man, you said watching Marcus Smart, watch Tony Allen, watch Matisse Thybulle, watch those guys. Those two guys did not have much of an offensive game throughout their career, but Matisse Thybulle, he's a two-time all defensive player and he's only 26 years old. He's not great offensively, but he's made a career for himself on that side of the ball. If I'm Killian or if I'm a person around him, just have him study some of the great defenders of our era and model that game after them, man. Do something.
For sure. I don't want to make this a Killian Hates podcast because I feel like we could spend so long on him, and I think it's unfair to the viewers that did ask questions as well. This comes from Truthella 2011. He asked, are people underselling how good the bench is considering last year? It was ranked 5th last year with guys like Hamidou Diallo and Joseph as mainstays last year.
Yeah, I feel like people are underrating the addition of Monte Morris, getting Alec Burks back, the potential of having Isaiah Stewart come off the bench if they do go with an Asar and Bojan front court along with Duran. Like, those are 3 really solid guys coming off the bench. And I used to get into arguments with people on like Instagram where they're like, it doesn't matter if Luka Garza's the 12th man. And I'm like, but it kind of does. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he's your 12th man, your team's not very good. But if he's like your 15th man, your team's a lot better. Like, depth matters in the NBA. And yeah, truth telling, you're telling the truth, man. 100%. I think people really are underestimating the bench for the Pistons.
It's funny. The MVP of that bench last year was Alec Burks. And when he was injured, the Pistons had one of the worst benches in the NBA. Alec Burks come back. He came back from his injury. I think it was a foot or ankle injury. Comes back healthy. And to tell his point, yeah, it was the 5th best bench in the NBA. I mean, the bench was coming out there putting up, it seemed like 30, 40 points a game. And not only do you still have Alec Burks coming back, you added Joe Harris. You drafted Asar Thompson, who could be on the bench with you. You replaced Corey Joseph, and you upgraded Monte Morris. You don't have Hamidou Diallo anymore, but who says Asar can't play that Hamidou Diallo role off the bench? Just be that energy guy. I think there's a lot to like about the Pistons bench. Now, do I think people are underselling it and maybe sleeping on it? I do. And I think the reason is it's the Pistons. If this was the Lakers bench, I guarantee you ESPN would be talking about the Lakers bench every damn day. But it's the Detroit Pistons. People, they're not going to pay attention to a team that hasn't made the playoffs. It seems like, 2018 was the last time they made the playoffs?
Yeah.
And they haven't had a playoff win since 2008. I mean, it's been a rough stretch for the Pistons, but I think the bench is very underrated and people are underselling it. I think it's going to be a strength of this team and something that Monty Williams really didn't have in Phoenix. He didn't have a bench as deep as the Pistons currently have right now.
And yeah, I mean, you look at, if this is the second unit, this by ESPN, Monty Morris, Alec Burks, Joe Harris, Isaiah Stewart, and James Wiseman. I'll even say Isaiah Stewart at the 5 and then Isaiah Livers at the 4. That's a hell of a bench compared to what we had last year. And last year's bench, like Truthell is saying, it was not that bad. It was pretty pretty efficient. I think they were top 3 in free throw attempts or something like that too, all because of Burks as well.
Oh man, he is the. We talked about this, I think, in the season, and we were talking about like, hey, do you want to like trade Alec Burks? I was like, no, like I want him to teach the art of follow baiting to
Yep.
Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. And Cade obviously got hurt, so he never got to, do those one-on-one practices with Burks. But you started seeing Ivey doing it towards the end of the year, where he started doing the same thing Burks does, where he kind of just like he shoots it and kind of like puts his body into the defender's chest. And I think Burks to me is going to be, again, the MVP of this second unit because he's just such a great veteran and he's a very underrated player in this league.
Got any more questions?
We do. Some of them are really ridiculous, but I'm not going to answer it. About foot massagers, but no, we're not doing that one. Will Ivy make better passes now that he cut all his hair off?
I don't think it was in the way of like how Elfrid Payton's was, but that's a ridiculous question.
I know. His other question was, what would you rather give a foot massage to Shaq or Andre Drummond?
Who's ever paying the more money, man? I think, in all seriousness, I think Jaden Ivey will be a better playmaker playing alongside Cade Cunningham and Asar and everything, because again, he's not going to be forced to be a playmaker. It's going to be a little bit more relaxed offensively for him, even though he'll take on a larger scoring role. I think he's going to be great as that secondary playmaker.
Yeah, same here. Got a question from Luke. He wants to know if Joe Harris will see playing time this year.
Yes, I do. I think he will be part of the second unit. I think we'll be seeing him at the 3 and at the 4 this year. I don't think we'll be seeing him at the 2 just because you have Morris, Cade, Ivy, and Burks all getting minutes at those guard spots. But at the 3 and the 4, yeah, I mean, I think behind Asar and Bojan, a bulk of those minutes will go to Joe Harris and Isaiah Livers.
Yeah. I think he will play. I don't know how severe his injury is. We haven't really gotten an update from the Pistons on that side, but I assume he's healthy enough to get traded, and he should be healthy going into training camp, which I think starts in maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I think the Pistons start training camp like in September soon, like 6 weeks. But I think he will get playing time. I just don't know what position, because I think arguably he could play shooting guard, small forward, and even played some power forward for the Nets. So he's a very versatile scorer. And I think when you trade for a 40% three-point shooter like he is, coach will find playing time for him.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, he's a great shooter. Okay, we got a couple more questions, then we can wrap this up. So, Rock Howard actually has a serious question, which we're getting to it, Rock. We're getting to it. You asked some stinkers there about foot massages and Jaden Ivey's hair, but we'll go to this one. What makes Monty such a good head coach for this team?
I think one thing, well, a couple of things that I've read or I've heard other people talk about is just attention to detail, how he gets guys to buy in. He's very much a player's coach. I believe he played in the NBA for a handful of seasons as well. And just like, man, where was I? I just said attention to detail, development, and being a player's coach. I think those are the 3 things that really make him a good head coach in the NBA.
Yeah, I think what makes him a good coach for this team is experience in rebuilding. Not to say Dwayne Cassy wasn't experienced in rebuilding, but Monty, for me, had experience in New Orleans, and then he replicated the same thing in Phoenix to the point where they were in the playoffs every year and they even made the NBA Finals.
Yep.
And I think he can do the same thing with Detroit because the core is promising. You're going to have cap space to spend. For years to come. You're locking up core guys like Isaiah Stewart. You'll probably lock up guys like Cade Cunningham in the near future to a long-term deal. And I think that's what Troy Weaver and Tom Gore's kind of sold to him. And I think that's what makes him such a great coach. And not to mention, like, he's a player's coach. A lot of players love Monty Williams. Like, besides DeAndre Ayton, but that's like a weird kind of thing. But any other player you hear talk about Monty Williams, they always talk very positively about him and very high on him. It's just not just a coach, but a human being and a person. And I think that's really valuable when you're coaching NBA players. This is a good question. I know we said we weren't going to do any more Killian talk. But Mega Hustle probably asked one of my favorite questions that we've had. Was Dwayne Cassy the wrong coach for Killian?
I don't know, man. I feel like Killian Hayes should have been brought along a little bit slower. I don't know. I don't think there was too many situations where Killian would have thrived in the NBA. I think his biggest issue is just confidence, and I just don't know what kind of coach can instill that in him and keep him there. I mean, Dwayne Cassy seemed pretty generous with playing time and gave him a pretty long leash. I feel like a lot of young players would want to play for Dwayne Cassy because he's not. I mean, we watched Stan Van Gundy. As soon as some of those guys made a mistake, he'd pull them right away for no reason. Like, I felt like Dwayne Cassy let young players play through their mistakes. And I don't know. I just feel like with Killian, there's just not many situations where he would have been successful in the NBA.
I want to rephrase this question because I know there are people from the Detroit Pistons that obviously listen to this podcast, as we know. They used Lance's voice on one of their videos. I will say this. I think the way we use Killian to start off his career, I wouldn't have put DeLon Wright out there with him. I wouldn't have put Corey Joseph out there with him. I think the best way for a young point guard to understand how to play the point guard position is playing with a shooting guard that can help you space the floor. And I just don't think DeLon Wright or Corey Joseph, they were guards that could really help him succeed. I don't think Dwayne Cassy was the wrong coach for Killian, but I do think the way the roster was constructed around him, I would have loved to see Killian play with a two guard that, like a Buddy Hield, for example. Would have loved to see Killian playing with the Buddy Hield or a two guard that can really shoot it from the outside. I think it would have done a lot for his confidence as a playmaker, and maybe his career does pan out differently. I don't know, but I just think, sharing time with Derrick Rose, sharing time with DeLon Wright, sharing time with Corey Joseph, like, to me, that just kind of seemed like it was babysitting because they're like, well, I got him out there. I got to put a veteran out there so I don't have to worry about him making turnovers. Like, you got to learn through your mistakes. And it kind of felt like he just was handcuffed his entire time when he was playing the point guard position before we did win the lottery and drafted Cade. That's just my take. That's just my take on it.
Well, I think even put him out there with like an Alec Burks would have been a little different for him his rookie year. A bigger guard that can catch and shoot, but also create his own shot and even take the pressure of him bringing Bean as a playmaker. I think that would have helped him out a little bit. But again, I just don't think there's many situations in the NBA that Killian could have gone to and would have thrived. I think there was some real issues with his game that weren't figured out before he got to the NBA.
Yeah, maybe I'm being a little bit too generous with it, but that's just my take on it. Like, you're never really gonna grow and learn when you have someone out there kind of just like breathing down your neck.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair too, but I feel like Dwayne Cassy was pretty good with young players. I felt like he gave
for the most part. I mean, like, even Sekou he gave opportunities to, but that didn't pan out either. But we're not going to turn it into a Sekou debate.
They just got to stop drafting French players, bro.
They just sound a two-way player. And happy birthday to Malcolm.
Yeah, he looks solid, though. He shoots with confidence.
We'll do one more question and we'll wrap it up. This comes from Trutella, and really great question from him, and I think we'll have a lot of fun answering this one. What would you choose? Spacing and elite three-point shooting, Bojan, or defensive and playmaking, Asar in the starting lineup? Which is more important for success of Cade and Ivy?
Man, I think right now they're both good skill sets to play along Cade and Ivy. That's why I say start both of them. But I think right now the spacing and the elite 3-point shooting is a little better for Cade and Ivy, just because they're going to need more room to operate. They're both, Cade loves to operate in the mid range. Jaden Ivey is a downhill runner. He loves to get to the rim. So I think spacing is more important. But man, to put another playmaker out there with them, that's going to help them out a lot. But right now, just for the sake of this question, spacing and elite 3-point shooting, I think is more important at the moment.
It's funny. You could take this question a couple different ways of like how you want to articulate it. And I think if you're just thinking offensively, it makes sense to add a 3-point shooter like a Bojan. Him and Cade started building chemistry last year, and Cade really looked for Bojan to take the offensive load from him, because he's a great elite 3-point shooter, and he can get to the hole, and a good 3-point free throw shooter as well. But I'm going to go with the SAR on this one. And the reason why I'm going to go with the SAR with this one is I think he's going to benefit Jaden Ivey more than he would benefit Cade Cunningham. And the reason why I say that is switching defensively, I think he's really going to save his ass. Mm-hmm. And I think a SAR and Jaden Ivey in transition running together will create more offensive opportunities than a Bojan would. And it might kind of sound crazy, the way I'm kind of like talking about it and articulating it, but like you have to think like Bojan is not a bad defender by any means, but Asar can create more offensive opportunities with his defense, and him and Jaden Ivey can run in transition and create opportunities for everyone around them. Mm-hmm. Asar might not average the 20 that Bojan may average, but maybe he gets 2 steals a game and that turns into an extra, 4 to maybe 6, 7 points. You never know. I think his defense to me would really benefit Jaden Ivey, especially switching and especially, creating turnovers and more running opportunities.
I mean, yeah, that's why I want them both to be in the lineup. I mean, I think if Asar's defense is good enough where you can have him match up with the team's best player, mm-hmm. that's going to help out Cade and Ivey both tremendously, because then they're not doing it. But also that 3-point shooting just creates so much space, and
it does.
Cannot sag off of Bojan at all. But that's why I'm hoping both are in the lineup. I want to know, did Truth Tellers start telling the truth in 2011, or like up until 2011 everything was just lies, and then started telling the truth?
He's been an OG subscriber of mine probably since the DSA days, when I used to do YouTube shows with Detroit Drew, Bravo, who we'll see on here once in a while, and 313 JMO. I completely forgot his name, man. That was so long, and that feels so long ago, and it was only a couple of years ago, but he's always been a supporter of mine. I do appreciate him, hopping on in every once in a while. Yeah, man, it's crazy. You start something and people are just, they're followers of yours for a while, and I do appreciate them 100%. But I really don't have anything more. And if you do want to plug the podcast, tell people where they can listen to it. Follow you on. Do you still use Threads?
I mean, occasionally. I don't really use it that much.
I uninstalled that app so fast, man. That app to me was just like Zuckerberg just messing with Elon Musk, and I absolutely love it, because he fixed Twitter. That's basically what happened. He forced Elon Musk to fix Twitter.
I mean, I feel like there's still a lot of potential for it, but there's still too many things that need to be worked out. I'll still occasionally thread. But either way, Thread and Twitter, the name is the same, @LansCaparosi. You can follow me on both. But thank you guys for listening to the Pistons Talk Podcast. Do us a favor, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating. But more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.
If you guys want to go support it, all the links are in the description below, so you can give us a 5-star rating. We're trying to get our ratings up. Trying to get our podcast in the U.S. ranked a little bit higher. You got countries like Switzerland beating you guys right now. So come on, you guys. Step your game up. See you guys next week. Peace.